Hola, ¿escucháis?
Hello, can you hear me? Yep. Great. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the auditorium of Fundación Telefónica. I'm Diego Iglesias. I'm one of the managers of MMMAD Festival. As you know, during the month of May, in the city of Madrid, we bring international artists and national artists to explore what are the limits of digital art through an exhibition and installations and facilities program. It's a great pleasure to be here again at Fundación Telefónica for the second year in a row. This year a little bit more, and we hope that next year even more, with these days, with these meetings, in which we want to deep dive in what has to do with the mindset behind. The festival is mainly visual. We are highly focused on bringing the artists and their work, and we wanted to take a break to think and to share this roundtable with some people that we've been able to bring thanks to Acción Cultural Española, many of them from out of Spain, and to share with them the work, their ways of thinking, their concerns, and with the audience, of course, we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. As you know, today's session will be divided in two sessions. The first roundtable that will be starting right now, and we will start to deep dive in what it is and what digital art is not. And we have Doreen Ríos in the middle. She's a Mexican curator. It's a great pleasure to have you here, and we finally have you here. We have Johanna Jaskowska. Well, she's not Spanish, but she's even from Madrid. She has just moved in, and it's a real pleasure to have you here. And we have Martina and Vanessa at the end from DATEAGLE. They are Spanish curators that have been working in London for quite a while, and they will elaborate a little bit on their ways of thinking. So it will be very simple. We will have some introduction presentations for you to know what they do, and from there on we'll start the chatting. Of course, it's an open conversation, and if you have any comment and remarks, any concern, you can raise up your hand and you will get a mic. Okay, and that's it. We'll start with the first one, okay?
Como os decía,
As I was telling you, the first one has to do with the word digital art. It's a word that is increasingly more common with NFTs, with metaverse, with this kind of revolution, post-pandemic revolution that we've lived with technology. Suddenly, digital artists eventually have an approach. They are focused on the audience, but we think that what digital art means is not that clear for many people. So we've brought these professionals that have worked with digital art, but also in other disciplines, for them to help us deep dive in all these topics and to see together what the boundaries are, what the boundaries of this discipline are. In fact, it's a discipline that has been existing for quite a while, but it is now when it is having the same relevance as others. So we'll get started with Doreen Ríos, and as I was telling you, she is a Mexican curator that has an amazing project that is called Antimatter, and I encourage you to investigate on it. And we've brought her here, and it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the amazing program and all the things that you're organizing these days in the festival. It's been revealing after several years of no traveling, in my case, to revisit certain spaces that I knew, people with whom I hadn't really been able to specify collaboration. So it's great for me to be here to talk to you about this. The foundations of my work as a curator, researcher, and especially during the last years as a teacher and as an academic researcher. And this question has led to many reflections. So it's not really what it is or what it isn't, it's more about what it can be. What can digital art be? I was telling Diego a few minutes ago that I didn't want to use images because in a certain way, maybe the other speakers will also have this visual background. But I think it is interesting to reflect on these diagrams. They make me think when I'm sharing a space, and they also invite us to continue growing within these spaces. When we think about digital art, it seems that we understand it as something that can be exchanged with new media, electronic art, but none of these things are synonyms. This might seem slightly academic, but it has allowed me to survive within this specific universe. From the historical point of view, when we talk about new media arts has brought forward certain conversations that go beyond traditional semantics. If we think about the increase of new media in the 60s, approximately, this has to do with a tradition of labeling arts such as sculpture, painting, etc. When we talk about new media, this doesn't fall within this meaning, this previous meaning. Historically, media, this word, has always been associated to a specific technique. And within these terms, new media, this doesn't necessarily coexist or correspond to digital art. It has to do more with communication media, so a means to be able to convey a message. It has to do with Newton's idea compared to Aristotle's ideas. This leads to a gap over time. If we continue producing, exploring, and we never generate this bridge, well, we can't have these exchangeable terms. This means that when we talk about digital art, associated to new media, electronic art, one of these branches has to do with digital art. This is not one specific aesthetic or one specific topic. How to classify this within artistic logics? Painting, for example. Well, painting can be anything as digital art. This would be the starting point of this debate, this universe. What can we encompass within digital art? We have 3D model, we've got generative code, memes, bots, artificial intelligence, digital painting, and a long, etc. What does this involve when it comes to researching, studying, to be able to generate fertile grounds, to be able to hold these conversations? When I talk about digital art, I would say that the reality is very different to what we had before. The material nature that can be incredibly fluid. Which features should we take into account to be able to converse, explore, research within digital arts? I think these three spheres would be the main ones when we're talking about the material nature of digital arts. All the things that we see within the digital sphere is zeros and ones. Zeros and ones that can be turned into images, audios, videos, texts. All of this is the same matter, so to speak, that we can shape. It could be water, for example. Water can adopt any kind of shape. This would be, of course, a space for opportunities. It is a challenge. These digital objects don't navigate the world as physical solid objects do. And we cannot approach the digital arts without an interface. And this means, of course, that there's no matter involved. We have different features from interface to interface. The example of water from one recipient to the next, to the next, to the next. And this is very interesting. If it is an object, we can approach it with our body, and we can generate certain actions to be able to connect with whatever is within that. This leads to different challenges. These interfaces, at the same time, are meta tools. If we reflect on something that's on a screen, this can project different kind of contents: entertainment, affection, communication, communication in general, workspace, etc. These meta tools, this interface, this container, taking into account it can be mutable and variable, can be rethought, reflected upon many times. And this is what is happening right now in Madrid, to take these devices, these spaces that exist, and just take away the content and replace it with a different content. This is where the strength comes from. It can be communicating differently to what we're accustomed to within outer spaces. There's a different approach, different look towards this space. In these last years, in my career as a curator, I've reached certain conclusions, certain elements that within certain conditions, with different possibilities beyond the artistic conversation, that lead to a specific practice. In general terms, these topics haven't been approached with the same solid point of view related to digital matters and digital practices. Among these possibilities, these are the ones that I've detected. They have to do with conservation, with authors, accessibility, automation, distribution, programmed obsolescence. This is also related to free software and all the positions that are related to that specific narrative. So it's not only poetic narratives that use these digital arts, but it's a conversation that in many cases can lead to research, to the theory of art, to collectionism, curatorship, etc. And I conceive them as layers that exist in a horizontal manner, involving all around the artistic practice. And this generates a speech that goes beyond aesthetics, tools, and affections. It is something that cross-cuts these disciplines, and it generates at the same time a complex discourse. And we have to ask ourselves constantly, what is a digital art? What isn't digital art?
Muchísimas gracias, Doreen, por el recorrido, y da gusto.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to to copy your speech. It's a very clear way to understand it. And now we'll move on a little bit. I'll give the word to Johanna Jaskowska. As I've told you before, she is a digital artist and designer. She has been a pioneer in almost every sense. She has been one of the creators of Instagram filters. She has a great world impact. And one of the things that I'm most interested in is this kind of the way of building this new fashion in a digital way, technology that's being developed, and you are doing your best there. So I'm going to turn this around for you to have it available.
First of all, I'm not Spanish, so please be nice. I will try to use Spanish as best as possible, but if I can't find the right word, I'll probably use Spanglish. So, hello, my name is Georgina. No, it's a joke. Who am I? It is a very interesting question. It has to do with social media, with how we see ourselves within social media and reality. My friends called me Jojo, Juani, El Tío Polaco, many names, but social media and the online sphere, my name is Jobska, and many people know me as that due to my work. And considering that I reflect on how we present ourselves online. This is a very interesting debate because there are many things that we can research. I'm a nerd. I'm passionate for digital art, video games, these digital means, new technologies. All of this is my passion since my teenage years. And people ask you, what do you do? Where do you work? And my answer right now is, I don't know. I do so many things. I can't really define a specific discipline. If I'm a designer, photographer, digital artist, I experiment with technology. I work on the internet. I work with the Internet of Things. I've worked on several projects, and I love exploring, researching, and trying new things with new technologies to break the rules of the establishment. So I don't have a specific answer to this question. It is a set of many things that are interesting to me. Digital fashion, augmented reality. Some projects are more conceptual. The digital jewelry that you can see at the top. Photography, interactive installations. I love doing a bit of everything. If not, I just get bored. Very briefly, I started out in Berlin when I lived there. In the past, I had many video mappings, virtual experiences brought forward. I worked in the music sphere, worked as a DJ, and I was focusing on the visual aspects. I hadn't really focused on concepts, and I went to Berlin. I had to focus on my portfolio to be able to get a job. But I didn't really want another boring web page with the same grid that everybody has. I was exploring new projects with Unity 3D. It is a software to be able to play video games. But with this software, you can also export to WebGL and make a website. And this is what I did. I created my portfolio. It was an experience. You access the site, and you could walk on the water and look under the water, creating a 3D environment that was completely different, with a project made of blocks. But you couldn't use it with the mobile phone. It was something different. It was a different portfolio. And this is why it was interesting. You could play around, you could jump, you could walk. This website was quite horrible, but it was the beginning of a new project. It was out of the norm completely. It was reshared, reposted here and there, everywhere. People started criticizing the project. For me, all criticism is interesting. It's not good or bad. And some people say, well, this is an awful design. This is not usable. It's a new way of exploring a different universe. This was the first project, and I was really surprised. I like debate, conversation, when people are talking about a specific topic. This is what was interesting to me. After this website, I was drawn by the idea of breaking the rules, breaking the establishment. And this led me to a different project associated to how I think. When I was in Berlin, I was the last person in the flat share, and I didn't have the key, and I always had to use the bell. I didn't have my own key, and it wasn't nice. We hacked the bell, and we connected to a microchip connected to the internet, and from a website we could open the door remotely. I was downstairs. I opened the door with my phone connected to the internet. If I had no battery, well, it didn't work, of course. And this was another interesting project. To open the door with your mobile phone leads to the fact that you have more data to play with. You have a small hack, different dimension to what a shared flat can be. And this is part of my hacker mentality. And I'm always going to try to find a different way of doing things. I'm going to follow a YouTube tutorial and learn how to do it. If I need to download a project and change it, this might be the key to make my project work. In Berlin, I also had my first real job with, well, it was a proper job, the kind of job that your parents want for you, with advertising, with a monthly wage, etc. Before, I used to explore technologies, mediums, trying to create a new narrative within the advertising sphere. At the beginning, we didn't really have a name or a specific title for the job that I was going to do within this agency. I was part of the digital team. There was a specific campaign for Mercedes-Benz. I was exploring what we could do with augmented reality. And I started playing around with my hands. Oh, you can do many things with this, I thought. At the beginning, we tried to sell this project, additional to the campaign. But, well, some customers don't understand the power or something, and they just killed it, and I continued with the project on my own. And when I did this, it opened a door. I accessed a world where I could use something that I didn't know I could use. Little by little, I started exploring augmented reality, Instagram filters, and I was really moved when I started creating these filters. This one was quite famous. It was a different approach to beauty. And the more I explore this beauty with this different approach, I think I find it very interesting. Beauty is not associated to a smaller or a bigger nose. I think that beauty can be expressed in many different ways. This is the Blas filter, inspired by Inferno, a documentary that was never finished, with incredible lights. It inspired me. I continued exploring with augmented reality, the photography, playing around with lights in reality, but you can do this in a different way in augmented reality. Photograph that you might have in augmented reality, you can play around with everything, with the light, you can move around, animate, etc. And then I launched Beauty 3000. For me it was the beauty of the future, inspired by Blade Runner, among others. It went viral. Overnight, I had followers, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, and everything went crazy, completely nuts. With this filter, I've reached 400 million users. It is something that I don't really myself comprehend. But all these users were using my filters. It was a strange kind of beauty. It wasn't the typical beauty, but it was amazing to see people understanding beauty in a different way to what society normally considers beautiful. And from that moment onwards, I started exploring this universe. It is related to fashion. I didn't really want to work within this field, the field of fashion, but it has turned out to be very interesting to me. I'm just going to show you some images. Nowadays in society, we seem to be like cyborgs. We need our mobile phones wherever we go. We use technology all the time, and we're intertwined with it. And this concept of cyborgs, we're not going to end up being robots. We're not going to have metal parts attached to our body, but the concept is interesting to me. Self-reflection, as in social media, we all have a different identity. And you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 online identities with different accounts, with different avatars, characters, and you're the architect of these characters. With virtual reality, metaverse, video games, this is what we've been doing for a long time. We are avatars of ourselves. And I also think that this is reality. It doesn't mean that I'm myself in reality and somebody else in the virtual sphere, but we're the same person but in a different way. With augmented reality, it's not really a type of art that you're gonna see, observe. It's not a passive approach. Users are essential. It is a new genre of performance art. Without users, the art doesn't exist. And this is fascinating to me. When I create something and I upload it on the internet, I am fascinated by how people use what I've created, with performances, different uses, people that are going to pose in one way or in a more mystical way, and this is art. I have an interesting input and output, and I find this fascinating. I can create images, but when users create images with my work, the collaboration is truly interesting. We also have the most important influences using these filters, and that's amazing for me. It's a different dimension. It's a new narrative for brands. I work closely with many brands to be able to create filters for campaigns, for fashion shows, because it is a way of connecting with users, with audiences that is very interesting. Singers too. This was a filter, Lady Gaga. But at the end of the day, augmented reality is a sort of new set of digital tools. Digital beauty, for me, well, it's just like beauty is not necessarily makeup, and it's many more things, jewelry, clothing. Beauty as a topic is very interesting. We've been studying beauty since the beginning of time, and makeup has been used, jewelry, and we've used it for many, many centuries. But in the future we will have, and now we have, new tools. With these tools we can invent and we can push the boundaries of what beauty is. And this is what I'm trying to explore with my work. 3 years ago, we sold the first digital garment. It was a dress, and what is interesting about NFTs is that you can create things that don't exist in real life. With these tools, you can do anything. dress made of water or made of wood. Crazy things, and this is really interesting. If we design things that we already have in real life, it's not so interesting. This might seem a bit blurry, but right now I think we need to explore these new codes, reinvent things to be able to move forward. I'm just going to mention one last project. It is about digital jewels. It is associated to digital beauty. We have our iPhone, our mobile phone, we've got our Apple Watch, all these devices that we use, technological devices that are interesting. But these technological items are a bit ugly or made of plastic or functional. But I think we still need a bridge between jewelry and technology. Once we succeed by joining these two worlds, we will open up a marvelous door into the union between society, technology, and how we relate to technology. And this was another project, but I think that we don't have much time. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Johanna, por compartir.
Thank you very much, Johanna, for sharing all these projects with us. We'll speak about the boundaries with the design, art. This discipline sometimes are rejected from the world of art, but it's something that is really mixed. And I wanted to give the floor to Mayorga and Vanessa Murrell. And we found a project that they will tell you about during the pandemic. And as you know, the exhibitions, the online exhibitions were really common during the pandemic, and we saw that every gallery were replicating their white cubes on the digital space, something that was a little bit nonsense maybe. So why should we have these physical boundaries? We're speaking about the digital world. So they designed a great exhibition that is a great role model for us from the festival, and we wanted to bring you here for you to tell us. And well, thank you very much for coming along, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. As curators and platform, we wanted to introduce the context of the project, and then we will talk about the digital art specifically. I'm Vanessa, I'm from Murcia, and I work with Martin, my colleague. We're writers, we're curators, and we have created DATEAGLE ART. We've based in London, we've been there for 8 years. Martin comes from graphic design, and I come from the world of fashion. When we settled in London, we started working in these areas. Our starting point was always art. It was the foundation of everything, to design or to create fashion. So we decided to quit our jobs, start from scratch, and we opened up this platform, DATEAGLE ART. We wanted to meet people. We wanted to invite artists from our generation. It is very difficult to find well-paid jobs. In many cases, it was difficult to connect with these artists. We have continued with this project. 7 years we've been doing this. We visit one artist per week, and all our content has to do with physical art. So we have a sort of hybrid between physical and digital art. We visit the artist. We've visited around 200 artists around the world, and since 2019 we've received support from the British government to be able to do this.
Well, basically, Martin and I come from Madrid. You come from Murcia, I come from Madrid. It's important to mention this. And basically the platform is a center where we make our network, our artist network grow, our visits. Something that's really important for us as curators is to support artists from groups that are infra-represented. And when curating, as Vanessa says, we are constantly curating since we're studying. So it was a time when we were in London. Vanessa studied at CSM, and she took a leap from working with very top people with 20 years. In my case, with 21 years old, I was working at a very top position at Ríos, playing a role as magazine coordinator. So many things are going on, and they're very fast. It was that culture shock with that hectic rhythm with the city, and it is when we decided to take a break, to leave everything and to start from scratch, and we started to do internships at different art galleries.
We documented everything with analog photography, and I think that nowadays we're consuming information all the time, and to just stop, look, observe or hold a conversation face to face is important. So this is the interesting mix, when you can mix these experiences with the virtual sphere. To have our online platform has led us to many things. We'd never considered ourselves curators. We just did interviews, opened up conversations, used images, text. The first exhibition was the Pink Panther show. It was a physical exhibition. It was through Instagram. And our friend just posted by saying, if you answer, well, you'll be within this exhibition. And the next day she was just at our house, and she said, you have to organize this. And we never imagined that this could happen. And thanks to the virtual sphere, we started working physically. We didn't know which artists were going to participate at this exhibition. It was just all these people who had answered the post on Instagram. The role as a curator was that we had to work with this algorithm of people, and it opened our eyes to this balance, to this mix.
Shows.
We come from curating physical exhibitions, exhibitions on real spaces. We started in project spaces like abandoned houses, industrial spaces. Especially there's an exhibition that is the one that you can see here, Vacational Ground 5. And then we jumped to these exhibitions like in white cubes in art galleries. But since the very beginning, it's very clear for us that we support every cause, but we do not necessarily say it. As I've said before, we support unrepresented groups from artists, but we want to represent digital artists from day one. So we have no idea about curation or art history or journalism, but we like to curate, we like to write. It's natural on us. Vanessa deals with building the narratives at the exhibitions, and I deal with the visual topics, so to speak. So we've been interested in digital art, and we are speaking about 2017. It was happening, but not as much as now.
We have a specific style as curators. We don't really have a style. This is what's so special about it. Words, classification. We just consider ourselves to be two children playing around. with different phases within history of art, and each project is completely different to the previous one, so there's no specific classification. We've had sculpture exhibitions, painting exhibitions. We never repeat at the same venue. We use public venues, spaces, car parks, a bit of everything, and we don't want to be labeled specifically. The system tries to label you, and we want to escape from that, and we just to be able to get acknowledgement. Based on this, we also wanted to present Control the Virus exhibition. This was our first exhibit as curators. We had DATEAGLE art page. We didn't have the possibility of organizing a physical venue, so we used this platform to be able to show our art. We started in 2017. It's called Spread the Virus. This was in 2017, volume 1. Volume 2, the other artists.
What happened? We created the first volume, second volume, and when creating the third one, the pandemic arrived, and we received the support from the Lord Council of England. They got in touch with us. We didn't want to spread the virus with this pandemic, and it was a little bit a conflict in the sense that this exhibition was about a virus, but it was not the virus that we've lived.
It was within the digital sphere. We wanted to invite an artist. Normally, exhibitions work based on the following idea. There's a concept with a specific narrative. We wanted to flee this narrative. We just wanted a flow of the narrative. It's a 1-year exhibition. It is virtual. We invited 12 artists. One artist works on one work for 1 month, and based on that, the following artist reacts. And then there's an interaction, one after the other. And this is the idea behind this, spreading out art over time, reacting to the previous artwork. Within this idea of flow, without us intervening or dictating. With the pandemic, we received the support by the government.
For the funding, we applied for the funding, and we call this Spread the Virus. So it was said we won't be granted with it. So this happened, and the pandemic started in March. We applied in October, and they would tell us in February. And lately we changed the name to show some respect for the situation, and it was from Spread the Virus to Control the Virus. It's not about Stop the Virus, because English government's motto was Stop the Virus, and it was amazing because after 1 month they started to change the motto to Control the Virus. Don't stop it, control it. Yeah, they wanted to buy the domain basically because it's called Control the Virus.
There were some legal battles involved, yes. Previously, this exhibition was within our web platform with our interviews, but we had that boundary. We were mixing exhibition with interviews and visits to the artists, but every year we wanted to extend this. We wanted to extend it and to turn it into a web page based on Control the Virus. We were able to curate 12 artists. Each one of them has created virtual artwork within the space. We're talking about 12 international artists working on different projects. You're seeing some of the images, how the exhibit works, the webpage. That one was Natalia Stuk. She worked with scientists to obtain data from the sun related to temperatures, and she's working with scientists to be able to create her digital artwork. Another artist plays around with genders, playing around with different images related to vaginas. So all of this is included within the webpage, and you can just explore it. We've worked with more than 400 people, artists, scientists, technicians, graphic designers, musicians, many types of people.
Essentially, every artist has a different narrative. The general narrative is to bring all these artists, international artists, together and to create something from scratch. Like Vanessa was saying, normally it's an exhibition, you have a concept, you have the artists, the work, you have an idea, and you speak about it, you transfer it on a press release. There is a text that helps you understand the idea, concepts, and exhibition, and this is like the foundations. After that, you curate, you organize, and you produce. This case, a press release is written at the end of the exhibition. 1 year goes by, and when it has gone by and every hardware is created, we can write down the press release. This is what we were saying. This works the other way around.
As curators, we also have to curate the web page, the functionality of the web page, and how these art works. We have a day mode and a night mode. We're aware of people being fed up about screens, the importance of lights. Everything is transcribed. You can make the text bigger if you need to, if you're dyslexic, for instance. And digital art doesn't take into account this overwhelming feeling that we can have if you spend 12 hours a day in front of a screen with a small typing, etc. We have to make this accessible also to people that might be disabled. All of this is recorded in voice for people who can't read. All these things are taken into account. So this is the result of the exhibition. We think it is ironical that the largest spread has associated to the title of control. The more we want to expand, the more the need to control. And this also has to do with our work with the government. Which type of art you can show the public, which responsibility do you have when you're showing, for example, nudist content or political content. It is also an interesting debate for us.
¿Ese es el resultado final?
Yeah, this is the final result. 12 artists, 12 artworks. It's a virtual experience, and it ended up in March. So now the exhibition is over. There's a result. And we are thinking on volume 4. That will be for next year.
For volume 4, we want to work on the hybrid format. Face-to-face, navigate these membranes. And this is what you were mentioning, the containers. How to go beyond the virtual experience to include also the physical experience. We don't want to lose this. Many things are made only for the virtual sphere, not for the physical one.
We've had conversations with many artists, and we were saying, if we want to do it physically, would you be willing to do it? And many people have said, no, we don't want this in a gallery. I mean, they would be really upset. They don't want to have real space. They want to have it exclusively online. So to navigate these conversations with the artists, or even how to move to the next level to design digital art physically through a screen or from a screen, I think that's a challenge. That would be really cool.
Pues muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, guys.
Pues muchísimas gracias a los cuatro. Yo creo que
Thank you very much to the four of you. We've invited you to have these different points of view for different profiles, but I think that they are really like if you were psychic, so to speak. And you have talked about the fact that digital art of course, has to do with the other artistic practices. From our festival, it seems that artists are always new, and no, artists are starting to change with the hybridization with physical projects, and we should understand that digital means is another mean that also works. And in this sense, I don't know, what do you think in this relationship between the physical and digital world? How do you see your work, if it has changed in these last years? How do you perceive this relationship between the physical body and the avatar? Basically the avatar.
From my point of view, I'm really sensorial, and I think as human beings, we need to hear, touch, to have the physical experience. When the digital experience is at its best, has to do with immersive experiences, with all our senses. And I think this can be difficult to convey on the screen and to have that. I think the digital world is quite recent. We're exploring what can be done with the digital art. We're going to continue doing this. But at the same time, we can create an interesting relationship between what can be created within the digital sphere and how this can inspire reality, creating real things. When you establish a conversation between both worlds, somebody doing something in 3D that is moving and touching, this 3D design can inspire a print, a sculpture, something that is tangible. 360 installation, sort of more real world, more physical. And this is interesting to me. I want to do more physical things inspired by what I've created in the digital world. Yes, I fully agree. They're not separate worlds or practices if we're talking about artistic creation within the different possibilities. Nowadays, I think it will always include a layer of digital nature, because this is what we do. We use it constantly. So I've never considered it to be a division. 3 years ago, I was working at the University of Arts in Mexico. There were 2 degrees. One was plastic arts and the other one was digital arts. And I always thought that this didn't really make sense. There's no specific reason to separate them. It was common to see final exhibitions in plastic arts that included selfies, testing on screens, how to handle the different materials related to the digital sphere. And then on the other hand, a lot of students of digital arts were working with their bodies, with nature. And this was very interesting, because this was really what it's all about. These tools, we can change contents as we wish, but to use this hybrid format, after the 2020 until 2022 sitting in front of a screen, I think we need to have a clear transition. Many of these habits and practices are here to stay. This makes me think also of Maggie, a Mexican gallery, and Janet 40. All the production that they have has to do with artists who work with digital tools to be able to propose together a physical project. These are processes that have to be related to accompanying. It is not something immediate. You don't shape it in a specific way, but there's a support, a process, and it starts with a conversation. How could you relate it beyond the screen? And this is associated to this. How would you like to convey this to the real world, starting from the screen with different textures, matters? Within the art market, I think this approach is very interesting. In 2016, when they launched their project, it was very difficult for them to communicate these projects. This is Tau, but the desk is associated to a 3D design. These are some of the projects that they've used, and how they communicate this. And this is what they were saying. You were saying right now, these changes that have occurred, and then was one clear change. Nowadays, how to connect with bodies beyond screen, or how to include the virtual digital arts within other creative arts. I think that now it is much more obvious than what it was before. It is starting now.
It's another means, going back to the fact that the faculty are separated. I think it's annoying. For example, a sculptor is a sculptor, or a digital artist is a digital artist. Maybe, why do you call a photographer a photographer and not an artist? Maybe going back to the galleries and how to represent all this. We were at Expo Chicago some weeks ago, and there was just one video work in the whole fair. There were almost 300 booths of different companies, and just one video work, and that was the only work that you could buy like an NFT with cryptocurrencies. And it makes us think. It's like, well, Freeze and Meta are the ones that are starting to compete to launch just a digital art fair that could be just paid with cryptocurrencies. And Meta Arts is struggling to convey this idea as soon as possible, because if they don't do it, Freeze will come along, or someone else that will do it. So how to market it, how to show it, going back about how to show digital art, a screen, an iPad.
We have to take into account the material nature of the device. It is something that exists in the real world, but this is associated to how we read it. The container is associated to the perception that we have of it. This can be quite complex to exhibit art that is aimed at a digital sphere and use it in a physical space. And for this Control the Virus exhibit, we used artists that they considered themselves to be real-world artists, non-digital, and it was the first project that they did in this sphere. We had web designers also involved, and we have to lose our fears. An artist that created Tinder, it was like a conversation, is the example that you were giving before with the towel and the selfies. People are afraid of working with these technologies. People don't understand them, and also accessibility. We need to pay for these softwares, for these devices, and then it's expensive, of course, yes.
I think that there's something transversal to this topic. You've mentioned this before, and there's a relationship with the community. I think that one of the things, one of the most singular things in the digital art, but some practice of digital artists is this close relationship with the audience. Without audience, the piece does not exist, or maybe you need someone's face to use it, or it's a space that is closed and until nobody gets there, nothing happens. I think that this way of getting along with the audience from the festival, I think that is something that creates some reluctancy, so to speak. Things that people don't know whether they're design, art, or an experience that has to do with a show, with a performance. I mean, the way to relate with the digital world is so diverse, and it's not as easy as to understand as a sculpture. For example, if you see that piece of work, you see, well, I can bring this to my house. So this way of getting along with these pieces of art is one of the great topics, I would say. I don't know how you've lived this in your experiences. Of course, with the filters, maybe you have a very direct report from the users. This is very interesting. But for example, in Control the Virus, you don't know what people are doing when they are at the other side. Or maybe in your case, Denis, that you have curated so many physical exhibitions, how do people get entailed? How do people get involved with all this? How do you see this generation gap, all these problems, the user experience eventually?
Gente está muy cansada de mirar pantallas.
I think that people are tired of looking on screens. I think that remote work, cell phone, Netflix, on the subway, on the street, everything are screens, and you're looking on screens. Even the human body, I think that this will change in the future, especially the point of view, how to perceive this information, as you were saying, Vanessa, before. We are addicted to we're information addicts sometimes, on the TV, on the cell phone, you name it. And on the iPhone, for example, you can have a smoother screen so that your eyes are not so tight. I think that's really interesting to find a way to make it easier, not accessible, but sweeter or easier to enjoy it. Yeah, smoother to enjoy it, I would say, because we are constantly working with screens, remote work, etc.
Video art with headphones. A lot of people just don't have time to use headphones. Art has got a shorter span. It has to be digestible, fast, and what can the audience digest? And also this responsibility is important. I went to Biennale in Switzerland, and all the videos lasted 4 hours, and I said, well, how am I going to look at this 4-hour video? Something to take into account.
Al final, yo creo.
I think that this is a super topic. I think that social media are changing our patience. We've been here for all 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we are all starting to feel the need of doing something else, to look at our cell phone, etc. I think that this is changing the way we behave, the way we integrate with our lives. But it's true that the artistic practices are changing too.
Yes, I'm really used to working with hybrid projects. For many reasons, I'm interested by the external adoption from a community that is not a niche community. How to communicate this, if it's art, if it's design, entertainment, I think it doesn't really matter. As long as there's a connection point, a conversation, something, a click, this is what we need, this is what we want. We don't want to go back to this discourse of who accesses, who validates. And if we look at the net art practices, it's the first provocations that they used in the 90s. Artwork used on the internet. And so whoever comes and views it can decide what it is. And this is a great example. This artist, Jody, it is artwork. And some people decided, well, this is a sort of copy-paste. The pioneers of NetArc, electronic literature, and other people decided as something completely different. As curators, how to break these boundaries, these barriers that can resist lack of knowledge, and also to isolate us within these screens. And sometimes this is what others perceive. But if something works online, very few people that belong to the rest of communities are going to access this. Well, this might seem strange. You might think that the project is online on the internet, so it is more accessible to everyone compared to the real world, where people leave their workplace at 6. But at the same time, a lot of people can't access this world, so it is this debate, something that you might want to be more public, but you have to send the link out all the time, and we need to find a balance between these experiences. One of these works made by Maria, the app artist, if you follow up the conversation and you spend time at the end, she gave that person her number so that they could continue the conversation. And we've really been able to know how many people have really viewed her artwork.
Well, thank you very much for your remarks. I would like to open the Q&A. If the audience wants to ask any question, otherwise we can keep on talking for hours. But if you have any remarks, concerns, questions, something you agree on, something you disagree on, that would be amazing. And if not, we can go on for a while. So, any questions? Yep, there's a question there. Hello, good afternoon. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us all to such an amazing event. I'm Angel Agrela, I'm an artist. And step by step, I'm discovering the digital world. Right now, I am collaborating with other artists that are more digital, with technicians, with programmers, etc., in order to enter this digital world. But I think that the situation makes me a little bit anxious, I would say. And I'm really thankful for your remarks regarding the fact that maybe it's not about deep diving in the digital art and snubbing the physical world. But, I mean, this removes my anxiety. But I would like you to give me a piece of advice to keep calm, so to speak, because maybe in a while I will be anxious again. So yeah, well, it's amazing that anxiety has appeared so so early. It appears in every single conversation. I don't know if you have anything to say. So what's your practice? I mean, what do you do? You're a digital artist, or do you paint, or what? Well, my first contact, well, I finished my degree in arts in 1988 as a painter, okay, but it's true. During my first year at the university, the sculpture teacher said you have to sculpt. At the end of the degree, I had an internship in Ion as a painter, and I was working as a sculptor for 15 days. And thanks to this, I acquired great technical skills. after working as a sculptor, and I created some pieces of work. So I consider myself this boundary that we used to have at the university, I would have liked to have encompassed and embraced almost everything, I would say. I really don't know how to explain myself. Subsequently, my first contact with the digital world was when I got my first Intel PC in 2006, and I spent 1 million of pesetas by then, 6,000 euros would be the equivalent. And I did my first artistic digital work. Intimity was its name. So I created some moves, etc. And in 2012, sorry, I created. I worked with Ion. I created a project with a group of people that were supporting me for 4 months, and so how do I see myself? It's not a question. I think it's the other way around. In some way, this is what we've said before. The disciplines world that are really separated, it's something that we've been that comes from a philosophical and academic tradition, and it's really heavy sometimes, the fact of being just in one niche, and if you go out of that niche, it seems that you are doing a bad job. And I think it's really worth it to consider this contact, an amateur contact, I would say. It's something that we should defend, and from the festival this year we are supporting this. We used to be focused on digital artists that worked with screens, but as we've said, this is much more extensive, so to speak, and this is what Doreen was saying, creating a connection in some way through the practice of an artist, through a specific piece of art, etc. This is the reflection that we are developing, the situation that happens beyond the fact of whether it's a screen or a screen in a wood bucket or whatever.
No sé si te he respondido a la pregunta.
I don't know if you've answered your question, but anyway, I think that you're doing a good job. There is no... From the festival, we have these internal discussions always. Well, will this piece of art be understood as a digital art or not? This tonight, for example, we have poetry. This is the least digital thing that you can find. But the artists that we have this year explores these boundaries in this field, and so we are trying to define it. By the way,
no sé si es.
I don't know if this is an advice or not. I know an artist quite closely. She started out her career with landscape painting, and then she suddenly bought a tablet and she started exploring, and she used the technique, her experience with the tablet in this different tool. Ciclorama is the name of her artwork. Robel Mellado is her name. And he wasn't really an expert in anything. He was just a painter, and he conveyed this to his search, and he just suddenly wondered, how do I present these artwork? I'm always going to have a canvas. I'm going to have space always, and he uploaded them to Google Maps, these images, and it was logical move. It was just intuitive, and this is why it was so brilliant. Do you want to see my artwork? Well, you need to enter these coordinates in street view, and this is how you can see them. And they were still landscape painting, but I think it was a great idea. But then one day, Google said, "You're hacking our systems, so don't do this anymore." He had to remove them. this gathering, this encounter between elements in a space, maybe certain elements shouldn't be there. There's now an exhibition on Tinder, for example, and you're looking for someone and you can just suddenly bump into the exhibition. It's a new way of doing things to break the normal use of these technologies. It doesn't have to be super sophisticated. In the case of Raúl, it's just, well, I can do this, I can upload the image, it's working, and that's it. And it wasn't necessarily a provocation to Google. It could have been, but it wasn't. There's another artist who was an expert in SEO. And at the end, it seemed that he was part of a Basel fair, and this appeared just on the search of images. This went viral too. The new use of technologies, you can manipulate them, handle them for your own interest. This is super interesting.
Meta, ¿no? Como...
Like meta, I mean, it's the piece in technology that speaks about technology. I think that there's one of the great trends right now, the digital art, the reflection about the own tool. I don't know if there was a question at the third row. Hello. Well, thank you very much, first of all. I'm José Luis Reyes. I'm conducting a research about digital art festivals in Europe. And because of the title, I would like you to share a reflection about when you use a level of category or terminology, when you use digital art, and on the other hand, digital arts, that, well, I see some space between the contents that are set up or that are used when we use digital art and when we use digital arts. And as a second part of this question, what relationship you see when this terminology is used in plural, applied in many festivals, that using this word, their content is based 70 or 80% on music content and sound. Thank you.
Yo, por la parte que me atañe.
So, as far as I'm concerned, from the MAD festival, I wonder about this many times. I think that this is not a very good name, the fact of just limiting it to a digital art. Maybe we have to review this in a short time. Regarding the music, this year we will have music for the first time in the festival. I think that music is something much more accessible for people in general, and in our specific case we use music in order to try to bring people to a different place. So it's some kind of decoy, if you want. So we are trying to, people are more used to paying to go to a concert rather than to go to a DJ session, but maybe we are used to that before. We are used to that too, sorry. Maybe it's a mechanism to create resources in some way, but I think that the question is quite difficult to answer, basically in terms of terminology. I don't know, maybe Doreen, what do you think about it?
No se me pasa lo
with digital culture, digital cultures, I think I'm more comfortable with the plural because there are many elements within this. There might just be a relationship between them, basic one. When I think about digital arts, I think about multiple tools, aesthetics, discourses, so that's the kind of terminology that I think fits into the answer, singular or plural. But we have to imagine 3D, for example, within the plural. But as Diego was saying, you might be building different communities that acknowledge this. And digital arts can be seen in this way, experienced in this way, and also including music. When I think about music, I always consider it to be a creative sphere, field that understood everything. When we're talking about the material nature, it is some kind of performance that is very, in early days, related to objects. So it's the foundation of everything. When we talk about the lack of matter, it can be a performance, distribution of copies, vinyls, cassettes, CDs, etc. And now any kind of digital platform. So in a way, these are the foundations of this idea. Why do we have to be in a specific space to make something happen? This has to do with the performance and the fact of thinking, if I want to be part of it, I have to be present there.
Luego sobre la terminología.
I want to say something about terminology. I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but it's something that's really annoying for me, especially when people speak about NFTs. What's an NFT? And they tell you a story that is really long, and it's like, that's JPG. I mean, it's a gift, it's a video, that's it. I think digital art is really complex. Or even the regular art. For example, my mother is not in the art, but she likes culture. And we go to a museum and she sees a picture with a spot, and that picture is worth millions. And it's why I speak about the artist, the material, where it comes from, and she still asks why. What does this mean? Imagine the digital art, and not about NFTs. I think that terminology is incredibly important, and we need to make it much more accessible. I think that we need to make things easy. We need to make it accessible so that people can digest it.
I think that NFTs are just authenticate and certificate. Instead of thinking about blockchain and other terms, we have to try to simplify things. And in Chicago recently, we interviewed an artist who talked about big words, but it was just a big word, just a large word. We grew up in different places and we convey different meanings to specific words. Maybe I have a specific meaning to something and Martin has a different one, a different interpretation, because we come from different places, and I think this is important.
And how it changes geographically depending on the country, on cities. When you're speaking about singular, plural, all these words, it's like, well, I've never heard about digital art with these words. For example, we are not very used to speaking about art in Spanish, so there are words that we don't know if they're right or not. For example, I thought that curator was curador in Spanish, and they said no, in Spanish it's comisario, like commissioner. So it's different. So in Mexico it's curador too. So a word can mean many things, and we need to make things easy. I think we need to do things accessible. Yeah, I think that the terminology is really important, and curator and commissioner, so for you to understand me, are like have two different and opposite meanings, so it builds the way we think. I think that this is something that emerges in the way of how we call ourselves, not the festival, but our artistic practice. For example, the other day I was being introduced, he's an architect, a cultural manager, curator, researcher, teacher, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it doesn't matter. I do things, and that's it. Sometimes we are obsessed in defining ourselves because of that categorization that we were speaking about.
Geography is very important. I do consider myself to be from Murcia, but I have family in France, in the Middle East, in different regions in Africa. For me, it is easier to say I'm a digital native because I'm born right now, and I relate to that much more than saying I'm from Murcia, I live in London. I belong to something that is more global.
Muchísimas gracias.
Well, so thank you very much for all your remarks. There's no answer to the question, I think. So what are we? We are digitals in some way. I think that it's a way to understand it. Unavoidably, no matter we're sculptors, painters, whatever, luckily or unluckily, there's a digital layer that will be on our work. So, well, thank you very much for coming along. Thanks for sharing this time with us, and thanks to the audience for coming along. And we'll have this second round table in 10-15 minutes, and we'll start with the second round table. It will be in English, by the way, but there will be simultaneous interpretation, so the people that want to listen to it in Spanish can use their headsets. And we'll see you in 10 minutes, and thank you very much for being here and for sharing this time. Thank you.